welcome to Day Home Divas. I'm Joanne.
I'm Cash.
And I'm Sophia.
This week we welcome back Kris Chisholm. Welcome back, Kris.
Thank you.
Okay, so where we left off last week, we had just heard the recording you took of you and Kasum Makar, the director of Sun Valley Montessori, and you had finally spoken with Jody from licensing.
Yeah, through the subsequent investigation, Jody at first seemed very helpful. And, again, you don't know where to put him and how to work, like what to do with all of this. And so I took a lot of time off. I was spending a significant amount of time with Ezra. So was everybody in his life, his mom, his sister. Any minute that anybody, like, it was the balance. His mom had just started a new job, so the flexibility for her to take time off was very limited.
Right.
It was a very stressful time.
Oh, 100%.
His sister's quite, she's quite young. She's, starting out in a workplace. It's very hard, for her to negotiate. So, everybody did their best.
Yeah, exactly.
I could hardly work. I was working, 1 to 2 days a week max. And the artists that I had at my shop, I was not present. The result was that I just had to shut down the shop because after a few months, I was burning out, and it was just, through the investigation, to try and keep it concise, I guess, they found, 48 violations, inappropriate physical guidance, emotional deprivation, like all of this stuff. So you have, AHS shutting them down for, just terrible quality of, and the environment. And then daycare licensing saying, yeah, this place is not great. These are all areas they're not compliant. Too many kids per teacher, not enough training, not enough, people qualified to even be doing what they're doing. The cook that they had there had never even taken any food safety.
Oh my goodness.
Like the bar, I can't imagine what could have been lower, shy of, just full on, criminal behavior.
Right. But honestly, that's what they were doing too, right? Yeah. I mean, abusing children, that's criminal. You can't do that.
Well, it is, but I'm trying to allude to,
Yeah, no, I get that.
So this is criminal. To me, this is criminal. But worse. And so about a month and a half in, I hadn't heard anything from the cop. I was phoning the daycare licensing every week, and the daycare licensing, I know Jody, she was one of the leads there. I was getting, very, ambiguous information, not a lot of concrete stuff. Nothing that was actually like telling me what they had found or not found, the presence or absence of impropriety. There was just nothing.
Right.
We'll update you when we know. I reached out to the officer in charge, and it was impossible to get a hold of her. I only had an email. She wouldn't give me her phone number, which is, it's fine. I probably would have used it a lot, And I emailed a couple of times without hearing back. And then finally she called me, and I was like, what is happening?
Yeah.
There's a month and a half in, and I have heard nothing. And we are all spread so thin trying to keep all of this, afloat. And at the one thing that you're hopeful for is a quality outcome.
Right.
And we're not getting any information about that. So about a month and a half into it, she says, I'm like, what is happening? And she goes, I am reviewing 18,000, I think it was 18,000. I have it written down in my notes, but a significant amount of video evidence. And do you have any idea how long that takes? And I'm like, yes, I do. I used to design, security camera systems of a job I had before. I know how much.
Yeah.
And I know how dry and how, I understand what you're doing. But I said to her, you do understand, though, that the teacher, the whistleblower who came forward, said that the cameras are strategically placed to not be in view of where they drag kids across the floor and like blah 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 blah. Like that is something she was very very specific about. When
Yeah.
she spoke to the teacher, like I understand, but like, you know, do you know what you're looking for? And she said, well, I haven't interviewed her yet.
What?
Right? Okay.
Would that not be step one?
I'm glad that the validation, because yeah, I've never said that to anybody and their reaction not be what?
Right?
And my reaction was visceral. And I said a multitude of expletive and horrible things to this officer, alluding to the incompetence, the laziness, the stupidity, there was not a redeeming quality I could find in the job that she was doing. And I made very clear that I felt that way.
Yeah.
And I said, how could you not start with that to even know what you are looking for?
Right? Like, that just seems common sense. Like, I mean, let alone going to school to become a police officer. Like,
she claimed protocols and that there's a process for this. I think that my opinion is she's just lazy and or stupid. And I have no kind things to say about the work she does or the person she is.
right.
Further supported by when she came to my house at the outset of the investigation to relay the findings and anyways, I'll get to that. So I was quite, I don't know, blunt and emotional to her on the phone. I was in the lobby of the building, and I can't imagine what people thought walking by, because I use language I don't normally use, you know? And yeah. So shortly after that, the teacher had reached out to me to say that the police had reached out to her to ask her some questions, which I found, wow, there's a protocol, you're following the protocol until you're called on it. And then
Right.
So she did the interview with the teacher, et cetera, et cetera. There was very little communication from that point forward. It was very frustrating. Finding Ezra a place to go it took a few months, because there is a childcare crisis. There is not enough childcare. And I think what's absurd is that the childcare that is present is laughable.
Right.
So we went to one place. I mean, you guys are daycare divas, so I assume that it's, a point of interest. We went to one place where you showed up at the house. I can't remember the name of it. There was a thing of weed killer empty on the front lawn, just a ball.
What?
That's what we're walking up. We're like,
Jeez.
well, that seems like a red flag.
Oh,
You go in,
God.
and this lady was there, and she essentially was like, it was a house, and they claimed Montessori again, and there's bins of toys in the living room and really nothing else. It was just like, this place just looked like it was for kids only. I'm like, does somebody live here? And she goes, yes, we have a lady who has to live here, but she only gets the bedroom. And you're like,
What?
huh? She goes, she only gets the bedroom. The rest is for the kids. You legally have to have somebody living in the house for it to be qualified as a day home.
Which is true, but I mean,
it's not a home.
That's not exactly.
It feels like, like if you walked into like a puppy mill, you know what I mean? Like it's
right.
Just like,
yeah.
This is the type of thing where you're like, this just, and she's head to toe in Burberry, and she's like, it's $2,500 up front, and like it just was, everything about it felt skeevy. So we left there. We found another one where the lady went in. We went into her basement, and it looked fine, and she was very cold. And I was like, yeah, this is where we're coming from. This is what we're looking for. We just want a soft, loving place for him to land after this.
Yeah.
I just want him to be safe. We want him to be okay. And there's a few of us there. And the lady's like, you seem like sensitive people. I'm like,
what the?
I'm sorry. What?
Jesus.
And she's like, you guys seem like sensitive people. This probably isn't the place for you. And I'm like,
or you seem like parents that have gone through a traumatic experience
and we're all
with a
looking
child
at each
that's
other like,
probably
is this
like,
happening?
oh my
is this happening? Did she just, and we're like,
Oh,
what
I
does
just
that
can't
mean?
with
She
these
goes,
stupid people.
drop off is between 8 and 8:30. If you're going to be later than 9:30, I don't want him. Don't bring him.
What?
Nap time is from 12 till 2 or 1 till 3, something like that. It was a 2-hour nap time. And she goes, it's non-negotiable. That is downtime. They will sleep. And one of us,
Good luck, lady.
one of us that was there was like, well, you know, he's 3 and they start to wean off of naps at this point. Like, you know, what happens when they just naturally don't want to nap? She goes, it's non-negotiable. If they don't want to nap, they will lay there. And you're like, okay, thank you very much. We're gonna just every place you're just like, I don't understand. And you find out how often these places are visited, and you find out how, you know, there's very little oversight, and there is no ramifications for falling short of quality childcare. There's just there's you think being something that the province signs off on, you know, that this is a licensed place, this is, you know, Pat, that there's a certain level of quality that's ensured, and that is the furthest thing from the truth. It is the Wild West, and you can claim you're a Montessori, you can claim that it's quality, you can claim anything, and it's not the case. So eventually we found a place, and then I got a call from there was a call or email from the officer, and her and a representative from daycare licensing wanted to come to my house to let me know what the outcome of the investigation was. And I said, of course, and I just knew that it was going to be nothing. And so she showed up, and, you know, she's like, well, we've published to the Alberta Child Care Lookup tool. So again, not knowing that any of this stuff even exists, there's a place for the Alberta government that you can go to, and any incidents or anything like that for any particular childcare service, you can look up and you can see any kind of non-compliance or warnings, etc., that they've had, and they're published on this website.
Right.
Okay. So for parents out there who should know that that's a resource that they should use, because I had no idea.
And sadly, a lot of parents don't. A lot of people don't know about it. So
no. So they came, and the daycare licensing lady told me that there's 48 violations. There's inappropriate physical guidance, which means that they use, you know, physical tactics to reprimand the kids. And she said that they've lowered their capacity from 148 to 217, that they've demanded that there be appropriate training, food safety training, training for the teachers because nobody there was qualified, that they would do an uptick in checks, which, I mean, that's an abstract, you know, concept. And I don't, there's no reassurance there. I mean,
no,
you're like, okay, there's no fines, there's no punishment, there's no nothing. Max is still charging 117 families, or has the capacity to charge up to 117 families, you know, is, you know, 1,300 or 14 or whatever it is a month.
Yeah.
And is making his bank. Their second location in Acadia had another, I think it was, I mean, don't quote me, I'm not entirely sure. It's published on the Alberta Childcare Lookup resource, as well as CTV and Global City. I don't remember. One of the other news organizations also said that there was 28, 26 violations at the Acadia location, including inappropriate physical guidance, et cetera, et cetera. So it's a culture of abuse that this organization is fostering.
Yeah.
And so what the daycare licensing lady said to me is that a place like this shouldn't be open, and that she wishes that she could do more, but there's a child care crisis, and they can't afford to displace 117 families. So in this province, the Alberta government says that unsafe childcare is better than no childcare.
Exactly.
And they sign off on it in order to just, you know, look, well, we know we have it all managed, but it's just, you know, it's lipstick on a pig. It's just, it's not what they say it is.
Yeah, they have a number of childcare spaces that in their contract with this new like subsidy or flat fee program, whatever, they have a certain number of childcare spaces they have to have open by March 31st, 2026.
Yep.
And so I think that plays a big role into it. Like they signed contracts with the federal government for their funding. So they have to have this amount of spaces open, and they are far, far behind that goal. And I think that's playing a role into these awful daycares being allowed to be open.
She also said at this point that this is not the most egregious case. And the problem is that she has is that this facility and the sister facility in Acadia, the daycare licensing lady, stood in my doorway and told me that she agrees that they are bad and that he probably shouldn't own childcare facilities, but there are worse places in Calgary. And that she's like, this is not the worst case that we've heard of, and we have to focus our attention on those. I mean, to kind of go out of sequence for a second, bit of a tangent. In the weeks following, that's when I think 4 more places were closed due to imminent danger.
Right.
So I mean, within the first 6 months of 2024, there was the Sun Valley ones, all the schools with the E. coli outbreaks, and then the other ones that were closed to imminent danger. And you're like, if this doesn't paint a picture and raise alarm bells to people, but it's just not presented as this like kind of cohesive ongoing problem in this province.
Right.
It's kind of presented as, wow, this outlier has been caught doing some pretty bad things, but really there's just a qualitative problem in Alberta for childcare, and the Alberta government does their best to reframe it as some outliers, but really most of it's great, and it's not the case. They're failing on every level. I told the lady from daycare licensing that she is specifically part of the problem, that if she goes home and thinks that she's doing good work, that she's not. And I hope she has trouble.
100%.
And I said, my son was dragged across the floor by his arms and legs. And you guys are telling me that the outset of that doesn't require punishment. And the cop looked at me and said, dragged across the floor can have a number of different meanings. It doesn't always mean that it was as bad as you think it is.
Yes, it does.
And I was like, someone put their hands on my kid? Are you fucking kidding? And I told her and reiterated again how horrible of a person I think she is, who I still do. I think that Leah Stenbeg should not be a police officer. I don't think that she should have been responsible for this investigation. I don't feel that she did her job. And when you say, I want to speak to your superior, I want to speak to, there is no escalation. You are pointed to websites and to forms to fill out, and nothing comes. It's just, the system is designed to dissuade you from any outcome.
Yeah. There absolutely no reason. We kind of talked about this in our last week's episode, talked about the daycare center and briefly touched on this. And unless you're pulling that child from a burning room and they keep running back and then you keep having to pull, there's no reason that you would grab a child and pull them across the room by the arm. There is no reason for that. This is absolutely child abuse, and it's sad. And it's terrible, the fact that, not only do the cops ignore it, but licensing is ignoring it. Like, there's nobody that's standing, other than for you and Ezra's mom, nobody is standing up for your child. That's
none of the organizations
ridiculous.
Say that they're
that's what I mean. Yeah.
To assure a certain level of care, and the organizations that say if something happens, we are there, and then something happens, they're like, we're there, but
we're not,
but we can't really do a lot. It looks worse for us if we do shut them down. So let's just reprimand them. We'll put some information on an ambiguous website that most people don't know about, and we'll chalk it up to a job well done. And so at this point, once they published everything once they published all of the information, Terry Fikowski from CTV, we had communicated a lot. I heard from her more than anybody.
Which is so sad.
Right. And she was as appalled through the whole process as I was. And there was a lot of stuff in the 2 news segments that they couldn't air. That the legal team was like, well, we're not going to put this in. We're not going to put this in. We're just kind of going to keep it focused on this and whatever. So there's a lot of stuff that got left to the wayside, which is frustrating because I don't think the people really had a full cross section of what it looked like there. But they did their best. City TV also did a story on it. Again, kind of having to limit what they presented, because they could say what was found in the outcome of the investigation, what was published publicly. But things like, the audio recording, things like the Google reviews, things like, the admission of the abuses, things like that, they couldn't.
Yeah.
And that was very frustrating, but I understand.
Oh, 100%. And even reading the articles, it's like, hold on, there's more to it. Like, you can just tell there's this undertone of like, wait, there's more. What are you not telling us, right? Like in the articles.
Yeah.
I mean, I understand legally, but.
And on the Google reviews, there's lots more. Like I have so many screenshots of like, you report on the Google review. This is what my experience was to deter parents from going to this facility. And this is my experience. And then the owner would reply and he would be like, these are bots. These are bots who say terrible things. And this isn't what the school is about. These are bots. These aren't even real people. And then he would change it. He would edit it. He would be like, please understand that we have made huge strides. And I would invite you to come anytime you wanted and walk through the facility, Kris, and see the changes that we've made. We were good before, but we're great now. And then I wouldn't reply. And he would be like, he would edit it again. And he would be like, you are harassing us and you and your family have nothing better to do than to come after us. And if you are seen on site, our teachers are instructed to phone 911 immediately because of the things you've done. And you're just like, I literally replied, it was like, man, can you not see that people can see when you're editing this stuff? Like you can screenshot, like.
Right. And I'm sorry. Right. But now they're going to call 911.
Yeah.
They're not going to call 911 when they're witnessing a child being abused. But hey, if that child's dad comes, like, what? Yeah. Are you kidding me?
Yeah. So, I mean, nothing I've said is untrue. Everything I say is quantifiable. It's all the information that I've been given. I have, screenshots and reports of all of it. So, I mean, I'm happy to discuss this with anybody and be blunt. I don't really care. Like,
Yeah.
This is about my kid. I have no qualms. The, retribution you want, the outcome that you want, you really can't get.
Right.
So you try to go through the appropriate channels, and it's all for moot effort. There's no punishment. This facility should be open. People shouldn't bring their kids there.
100%.
Yeah. There was a year-long duration of them covering up that there was a mouse and cockroach infestation in the cooking facilities. I mean, that alone was never communicated to parents.
Yeah.
The cook didn't have food safety certifications. That was never communicated to parents. You're told, we have this, quality food being prepared right here. And, it's sold to you as this, wonderful benefit. It's a feature, but it's really a bug. They didn't communicate the abuse allegations.
Right.
And to me, as a parent, those should be the thresholds alone,
Yeah.
So even if the abuse allegations weren't as egregious as I imagine them to be, which I don't believe, but just posturing, say that the allegations aren't just not reporting it to me should be the threshold where Kasum, the director in charge, should lose her job. You have
100%.
failed. How she is still in that role, I do not understand. There is no ramifications. There is no punishment. There is no incentive for these people to be good.
Right. And so when we were doing research for the last week's episode, everything has been taken down. There is we couldn't find any of the Google reviews. They're all gone. And It even says on Google that, I can't remember the wording specifically, but it says that it's been removed from Google. So because
I mean, I have no problem throwing up a new one. I mean, I'll
yeah,
I didn't know that. I haven't looked for it. The last time I looked was when Max messaged on the Google review and told me that if I was to be seen on site on the property, that they were instructed to call 911, which I found funny. I'm like, I have a business there, like,
right. Yeah.
So stupid, but yeah, I have no qualms throwing up a new one, and
Yeah, it's just, it goes to show how shady the business is. Like I searched everywhere. I searched Reddit. I searched like all through Google. I spent ages like going through every page I could find. There was hardly anything. There was a couple of news reports, but they focused on like the E. coli. That was it. So,
yeah.
And then everything.
So if you type in Sun Valley CTV, it comes up. The two articles, the one about the mouse infestation, cockroach infestation, and the one that Terry, I don't know if Terry did the original one, but the one Terry Fikowski did with me, that one comes up. We did try to start a petition. I mean, it's all useless. Like none of it actually matters. Like you get a petition with a bunch of signatures, nobody cares. Like
it's unfortunate, right? I mean, honestly, the only outcome of this should have been that the daycare was shut down.
Absolutely.
That's the only outcome. Like
the outcome, the appropriate outcome should have been the director is no longer here.
Yeah.
The teachers with the allegations should be terminated from their job.
Yeah.
Max should not own these facilities.
Right.
And I mean, the only way that you can say that you shouldn't have this facility is to, I don't know, somehow remove him from it. So I mean, you can't really do that. It's just closure.
Yeah.
But there's such a shortage and it's such a problem that the Alberta government can't have that.
Yeah.
Because there'd be 117 families screaming, I mean, and that's just at the one location. I think I don't know how many kids there are at the Acadia location. I know it's less. I think it's like half the size. I'm not entirely sure, but
if it's happening in one, it's happening in the other.
They said, like, I mean, the outcome of the investigation was daycare licensing published that there was stuff including inappropriate physical guidance at those locations.
Yeah.
So it's a culture. It's a culture there.
Yeah.
This isn't an anomaly.
No.
How it is, and so they should be closed. But say you're displacing 100%. 170 families. Do you know what I mean? 170 families all at once screaming for childcare.
Yeah. I mean, the government's going to have to do better. I'm sorry, but you've got to do something better. Whether it's screening these daycares better, screening the people that are owning them. Why anyone is opening a business in a field they have no experience, no education, no nothing in.
Because they can.
That's questionable, right?
Because they can. There's a reason that lady showed up to that walkthrough and, head to toe Burberry and asked for a $2,500 deposit, up front.
Right.
Because she can. Because it is a industry that makes money. And there's very little oversight. There's very little checks and balances to ensure quality. And yeah, it's even daycare licensing when Jody was like, I'm like, this is very structured. Like, where are we going to put them? And she assured me, like, I will help you. And you're like, one of the head people from daycare licensing is
right.
on side, and she's gonna. You feel reassured, for the first few days.
Yeah.
I will get you a list. I will get you some information. We will find somewhere for you to go. And everywhere she sent was like, well, this place is available Tuesdays and Thursdays. This one is only until 2:00. This one, like, nothing was.
What?
And some of them were. Most of the ones she provided were just temporary. They can take them for him for this long, and you're just like, this isn't what I thought we were gonna get. This isn't the help that I thought we had, because, and it's not her fault. There just isn't enough.
Right.
And so they rubber stamp, they green light places like, people like Max and Kasum to open these places. And the whole thing is just smoke and mirrors. We're a Montessori that's quality food care and quality education and a safe, loving place for your kids. And really none of it is real. It's all bullshit.
Yeah.
So, is Ezra in a private day home now, or is he in a licensed day home?
So he ended up after a few months, we found another Montessori that actually is a Montessori. that abides by the Montessori. Ezra did have, OTs working with him and things like that. So there was like, he's I won't say handful, but yeah, he's an active kid. And he has sensory issues, things like that, where he gets a little bit overwhelmed, And so the place that he was at, they were like, well, Ezra removes himself when he gets overwhelmed, and he'll just go and lay down in the hall and just have a little break. And I'm like, great.
That's a really good thing.
I'm very similar. That's great. And she was like, we can't really support that.
Oh.
And I'm like, oh. And she goes, it throws off our ratios in the class because we can't leave Ezra unattended in the hallway. Mm-hmm. Just having a little break, a teacher has to be with him, and now it throws off the ratio in the class. Right. And she goes, we used to be able to accommodate this by having OTs or extra staff, but because of all the cutbacks from Alberta government, we had to cut all of that. We don't have funding for it, so we can't bring in anyone else extra for Ezra's situations like this. So we're going to have to ask you to find somewhere else for him. Oh, and you're like, holy shit.
Yeah.
Holy shit. So we ended up finding a day home. The lady is a sweetheart, and Ezra loves it there. So, but now, he has to find a kindergarten for September, and we are just sick about now.
Yeah, I spoke with Candace a little bit about that, and she was interested in homeschooling, but she couldn't homeschool. So right. I forwarded her a source that she could.
Again, I want qualitative education, but what does that mean? So, there's all these just very ambiguous ideas and very little resources. And again, everything's just a shortage, It's impossible or hard to find anything of quality. And so, again, you're still stuck navigating it. But the daycare part, the early development stage has been to say it's been a nightmare is a disservice to just how.
Yeah. So is Ezra in a private day home?
He's in a private day home right now.
He is in a private day home right now. Okay.
Yeah, he turns 5 in August, so.
And he starts school in September.
School, yeah. Yeah, he's a happy kid. He's the sweetest. He's just the most affectionate, kind-hearted, kid there. So it sucks that the stuff he's going through. Yeah.
So when there was the non-compliances, were they posted in the daycare?
I never set foot in there again. After I confronted the director, I never set foot in there again. I was told, both by daycare licensing and by the news, that there was I don't think it was in the article, I just mean I was told, but there was a posted up list of the violations within. Max, you can hear in the CTV TV segment where he didn't want to appear on camera. They just have a little picture, and he says, that they use this, again, paraphrasing, that this was an opportunity for them. Not that they were bad before, but now they've just made so many more improvements. And I remember watching just being like, how can you say that this wasn't bad before? AHS shut you down. Right. The violations and the non-compliances. The only answer should have been, I was appalled to find out that this would happen in the facility that I was in charge of. I have made every change of staff, and to skirt it like that and to try and reframe it without taking any accountability. Should be everything that anybody needs to know about who this man is at his core.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Honestly, you're the owner of the company. It is
you're the owner of the company.
To know what's going on.
You're the owner
of
the company. Are you kidding me? The only, and had he not, done the town hall and just blamed the building, and had he not, had he enacted actual change and things like that, I do understand that, he may or may not be in the building all the time. Now, I say that, but in the town hall, he said that he's there often doing maintenance and, checking on things. And that, he takes a point to say that the kids call him Mr. Max, and tells these anecdotes about how present he is and how much the kids love him. Right. So, I don't find it believable, but should he have said, I'm appalled by the allegations, I'm appalled at what daycare licensing and AHS found, and I will do everything in my power to make sure that this never happens again. He never said that. He said the opposite. He said the opposite at every opportunity, on the Google reviews, on the news, on everything, that we weren't bad, you guys, like, and we've made it even better because of this, just because of, and that speaks to his character through and through. By his own words, these are the things he has said. And I've never met him. I've asked to meet him. I've never met him. He behaves cowardly, hides behind his Google review,
I mean, if he was in the business often doing maintenance and stuff, how did you not notice the mouse droppings and the cockroaches? Like, you were there often doing maintenance. How did you miss that? What were you doing maintenance on then if you're not checking on the basics, like, the cleanliness of the kitchen and you would notice that. So I'm sorry, don't.
When they were shut down for the mouse and cockroach infestation, they did by what they assessed was a significant amount of construction and revamping of the, where everything entered in and out of the daycare. The kitchen was, from what I understand, gutted and redone and like all of this stuff. And he had every sure this would never be a problem going forward. And it was reported that one of the parents who went in and walked by the kitchen was like, this is after everything and after AHS had greenlit them and they were open again, and saw a cockroach on the hood of the
God,
and was like, so clearly there's still a problem. And they're like, well, I mean, it's going to take a little bit for it to go away now.
But it is not.
No.
And you're like,
oh my God,
man, like there's just no, it's obscene.
Does anybody take ownership or responsibility for their actions?
A failure at every single level. There was not a level of it or a person involved in it shy of Terry and CTV and stuff like that, which I mean, I'm grateful for them for bringing, because if they didn't run this, we wouldn't be talking. Nobody would know about it.
Yeah.
Right.
Do you know what I mean? Like,
we would be talking because I would know about it.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So.
But at every level, there's just an absolute failure and people going, we did our best.
That's why we have this podcast.
Yeah. I would love to have Matt on this podcast. Hey, dude, you hear about us?
I would love that because
come on and let's hear your side.
The way I perceive his, rationale and logic to function is just shorts out. Like, I just don't understand. I have so many questions.
Yeah. And maybe he will. Maybe he'll. I mean, we're open to hearing all sides. So if he wants to come on and defend himself, we're open.
Yeah, I would love to converse with him.
Yeah. Right? We can have a 5-way conversation.
Yeah.
And he can come on and you can come on and you guys can talk. I mean, if he truly has done nothing wrong, then why is he not open to speaking to you? If he truly feels he is innocent and it's totally not his fault, why wouldn't he then say, absolutely, I'll talk to you. Let's get these people that are at fault. As a business owner, I want to, whoever is responsible for this, I want to hold them accountable.
Yeah.
Where is that? Right? Like, he just, come on, dude. there's accountability that
has never been presented. And
right.
I mean, it's just the opposite. That's the thing, is that comical. Because even in the town hall, the town hall was, almost 2 hours, I think, if memory serves me. It's about a 2-hour recording. And
right.
Some starts it off and then it gets handed off to Max. And then, Max talks about how it's the building's fault and the problem persists from outside of the building and it's built into a hospital because it's in the Holy Cross Center. And then, there's a cafe, a bistro, there's food services for the hospital, things like that. He's like, it all starts out here and it comes in. It's not our fault. There's nothing that we can do to stop this. And we would call the building and we'd be like, can you fix this? And the building would be like, okay, we fixed it. And then he's like, but we would still see the problem. And I'm like, then how come nobody was notified? And how come you didn't? Like, whether or not the building has an obligation or not isn't the point. Isn't the point. I'm not paying the building to take care of it, bro. I'm paying you.
Yeah.
So you can absolve yourself of responsibility by saying, well, the building is supposed to provide this. Okay, sure. That's for you and them to sort. Your job is to make sure that the daycare is safe. And AHS had to go in and shut you down. They didn't shut down the building. So quit pointing.
That's interesting.
Yeah, quit pointing fingers.
Yeah. So there was no one else then within the building that had the troubles with this? It was just the daycare?
Well, it's a huge building. And for sure, there was mice elsewhere. Nobody else got shut down.
Right.
The bistro, the cafe there never got shut. It was specifically the daycare.
So that makes me wonder then for him saying it's coming in from somewhere else, I would feel like more it's coming in from you, dude. Coming in from the daycare.
At the end of the day, it's the whole process was just finger pointing.
Yeah.
It wasn't us, it was the building. Okay, well then the teacher says that you were abusing kids. Well, we weren't, she was. And regardless, at no point was it communicated to parents.
Right.
At no point did the school take onus and escalate the allegations on their own. At no point, the school did did the minimal, I wouldn't even say minimal, he did nothing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
There was no action taken. And when there was action taken, it was because it had reached a boiling point where they were shut down, where the news was calling them, where the police were there. And, and then he says, okay, in the news segment, it's not that we were bad before, but we're great now. And you're like, your benchmark for not bad.
Right.
There is a chasm between that is absurd. You could frame it like that, which is more indicative of what he thinks quality childcare is than anything, which is why I am speaking so confidently about, him personally as a human.
His bare minimum was to take ownership and to let the parents know, as soon as anything came up, he should have let you guys know, that's their job. And his job is to protect the kids that are in his center. Why? I'm so speechless. I'm just oh my God, dude.
The whole thing just you just reach a point, and everything feels like it's so tense and it's so, I don't know, it's just so intense.
Yeah.
Through the whole process. And then you reach the end and then it just sort of dissipates. And there's nothing. There is no real change. Okay, they can have 31 less kids than they could before.
Right. What does that do? Nothing.
And that's it. And I suspect that that's a temporary thing. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Once they reach
100%.
And then can go back, apply at least or be certified, I'm sure, to get capacity back up once they have compliance for long enough. And then what more of a track record do you need?
Yeah. Right. It is just heartbreaking.
Yeah. And these are with kids. It's the thing. If there's any other business or any other facility that had this type of history behind it, if you were going to a restaurant and you found out that a restaurant had dozens of violations for non-compliances, you wouldn't want to eat there. Right. And not only are kids eating there, I can't understand how this is.
And they're so vulnerable, right? They're just little kids. They're so vulnerable. The younger ones, they definitely can't speak up for themselves. So the staff is meant to be there to protect them. And if the staff aren't doing their job properly, the director is there. If the director is not doing their job, the owner is there. Yeah. Every level of this, they're not doing their job. So who else is there?
Well, it's, anything that's privatized for profit, I find is inherently you're going to find people that will exploit it. And I understand people need to make a living and people need to make money. And I get it. But there's certain fields, there's certain areas where it seems like this is the logical place where you ensure the most stringent and highest safety practices, akin to something like a hospital, akin to something like where there's a certain level of, we keep tabs on this the most. We ensure the quality of this the most. And that isn't the case. That isn't the case.
No.
I think that people feel a false sense of safety in these facilities, and it's not. I mean, I did. I was like,
well,
they have so many
100%.
kids. They have multiple classrooms. It's a Montessori.
Yeah. And
like, it's not even a Montessori, in name. It's a Montessori on the sign outside.
Right.
That is where the Montessori ends.
Yeah. Especially with daycare centers and like agency run day homes, there's that false sense of security for parents when they're being inspected. Well, they're only being inspected once or twice a year. Unfortunately, it's giving parents, I think, sometimes that false sense of security that nothing can go wrong because they're monitored. And there's other staff there, so the other staff are going to say something if someone does something. But unfortunately, in some places, that's not the case. It's not true with all of them. But
in this place, it's a culture. And I believe. And allegedly, the teacher told me that they are knowingly cruel to the kids. And that this is I want to say the behavior expected, but this is the tactics that are utilized daily. And that before pickup, she told me that they specifically give the kids the most exciting toys and activities before parents get there, so that the morale of the kids are different than they are during the day.
My God.
So they're manipulating them.
Right. And I mean, that's coming from what she said she witnessed and, is part of this whole thing and the allegations. And it's hard to even have like a concise conversation about it because it's just there's just so much. So as you're talking, like as more and more comes up, and even when you're trying to recount everything, there's just like, oh yeah, and there was this,
Right.
She's like, this is the way it works. They are intentionally mistreating the kids, keeping them in line, threatening them, dragging them, doing whatever. And then before the parents get there, make sure that everybody's real happy. There's no tears. Hey guys, come get the most exciting stuff. Disheartening is.
Oh, it's awful. Like, they're just little kids. Like, I work with kids because I love working with kids. I love seeing their smiles when they learn something new. I'm totally getting choked up. But because they're just so sweet and everything about, like, I love watching them learn things and seeing them so excited about the littlest things. I could not imagine being like cruel to them all day and then expect you treat them nicely at the end of the day and they're going to love it like that. What?
And the thing is that the teacher, the whistleblower who came forward, my opinion is that she's a very sweet and kind human. She's still on, some of my social media. And if I post a picture of Ezra, she expresses like adoration and, I miss him and he's growing so fast, and tell him that, give him a hug and say, I miss him. And like, I have never gotten an inkling of concern or doubt in her. Not for a moment, which it just.
Yeah. I can't imagine people being so awful. Like, to just sweet little kids. Like, if that is how you treat kids, you should not be in this industry at all. Like, not the one that told you about it, like the other staff at the center. If that's how they're treating kids, find a different job. This is not for you.
Yeah.
And Max, find a different business to own, man. Because if you can just sit by, and even if you didn't have a hand in it yourself, if you can sit by and hear all this that's going on and not be furious that this is happening under your watch, and not be heartbroken and just want to take action and get it fixed and let everybody know that needs to know and take all the action that needs to be taken, then this is not the business for you.
Right. But again, I think that speaks to every level of this. So if you can
100%.
hear this stuff and investigate this stuff, and you can be daycare licensing, and you can walk into a parent's house and stand in their foyer and say, this isn't as bad as it gets. I understand it's bad, but there's nothing we can do. Okay, that's a failure. That should have a change in protocol of management.
Yeah.
If the Alberta government can oversee all of this stuff and say, like, we're doing our best. It's not great, but what can we do? That also facilitates a problem and change. And there's no accountability. The thing is that there's dozens of people throughout this that could have done something and did nothing and go to sleep soundly every night, and they shouldn't. They should not. They should be riddled with guilt and not at peace. And I believe that to my core. And, that includes the officer that I mentioned, that includes the lady from daycare licensing, who was emotional and was teary-eyed standing there talking to me, but I don't care. You didn't do your job.
Right. Yeah.
So, to the coward that owns the place, to every Kisume, the director, they should all lack the capacity to rest at ease, knowing that they are complicit in egregious behavior.
Right. Did you talk to any of the other parents at the center?
His mom did a bit.
Right.
Mom did. I'm a little bit antisocial. I don't really know.
I get that.
The other parents. I've met some of them. I couldn't remember their names right now to save my life. You know what I mean? I met them a couple of anniversary, and I couldn't point them or their kids out in a lineup. It just isn't something.
Right. No, fair enough.
So not really. I know she did. I know parents. She told me that other parents pulled their kids out or reported other things that I'm not very familiar with, so I couldn't speak to. But I don't think even at that facility enough parents know the full extent of everything. I wouldn't imagine. Which is sad too. Who would still drop their kids off?
Oh, exactly. It makes me feel like this isn't an isolated incident, right? Like what happened with your son, it had to have happened to other kids at the center too.
I believe that it happened to other kids at the center, but I also do believe that it happens at other facilities within the city. Like, I don't think that...
Oh, it absolutely does, yeah.
Yeah. I know it does, because she even said this isn't the most egregious, and then they closed the 3 or 4 other ones that aren't Max's, but are somebody else's for imminent danger. And so, yes,
that was Little Scholars. We covered that one too. Yeah.
So you're like, okay, so what is the bar? Like, I just am curious.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, because I feel like, imminent danger is, stuff that Ezra went through. So how much more extreme and severe is it for these watchdog organizations to go, okay, now guys, this one is bad. We should do our job.
Yeah.
And everything else up to that line is passable.
Right.
It's again, everything is so opaque.
Yeah.
Everything is so just amorphous. It just changes shape, and nobody really can put their finger on what qualifies as
right.
It's just and they don't publish what was happening there. They don't say like they just say imminent danger.
Yeah,
I understand protecting the kids and everything like that, and anonymity that way, but as a parent who's gone through this whole ordeal, I still don't understand what that bar is.
And I mean, for parents that are looking for childcare too, like especially like the Sun Valley is still open and still has children in their care, like maybe they need to be more specific on what's going on so that parents can make that choice for themselves. Are they willing to risk their child in that situation or not? Yep. Right? Like,
I have as many, I probably have more questions about how this all is intended to function than I did before this whole thing. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
You have these sort of like abstract ideas as to like, well, I imagine if this place was unsafe, that she would do her job and she would report it to like an organization. That organization would come in and they would communicate to the parents that this is, none of that happens.
Right.
None of that is actually the way it works. Not at any one point does the system just kind of, click into place, a relay hits, and, you know, a sequence is enacted that ensures appropriate outcomes. It is literally just, chaos.
Yeah, definitely more needs to be done. There needs to be more people held accountable for their actions. The government needs to be held more accountable and needs to step up and, you know, provide better standards of care.
Yep.
That's
Because at the end of the day, to me, and where I just kind of want to leave everything at for this school is it is inarguable and quantifiable that the director and the owner knew of abuse allegations. And between the teacher and them, both admitted that there were abuse allegations, like there were improprieties that took place.
right.
And they never notified any organization outside of them.
Yeah.
And they never notified parents. And that on its own, I can't understand how that's not the bar to close a facility.
Right. Oh, 100%.
So that to me is the minimum. And I can't understand how anyone can argue past that. And I would like to hear daycare licensing and the Alberta government try to defend it.
Right.
It is what I would like.
Did they not give you any explanation when you asked about that? Like to licensing, when you asked why the daycare didn't report it?
It's not the most egregious, and they can't afford to shut down, was just what they would say. And that specific point, I feel like gets lost into this teacher arguing with this. And even when you hear the director and the director's trying to, you know, shift blame and everybody's finger pointing and everybody's, you know, saying it wasn't me, it was them, and they were supposed to do this, and there's nothing we can do about this, and these allegations, like this is what we observed when we went to our checks, and this is what was shown on the camera footage and everything else like that. To me, I don't understand. Okay, but, and I know that there is in the childcare lookup tool, there is elements that, you know, allude to that there was a failure to report. However, for a facility to continue to run with the exact same staff and owner in place, and they've proven that now you have this track record, and you assume that now they've learned their lesson, and going forward though they're totally going to do the right thing. I can't understand that.
No. How are you doing after this incident?
You know, life is for the most part normal. I mean, for me, I had to shut down my shop. I got, you know, behind on things, you know, for my personal life, it was, it had a huge negative consequence. But I mean, you rebound, everything's, you know, will be fine. Yeah, shutting down the shop sucked, but I had to find some sort of reprieve from all, something had to give.
Yeah.
And outside of that, I mean, Ezra's happy. He's like the happiest kid. So really, that's all I care about.
That was my next question. How is Ezra doing now? Is he enjoying his new day home? And
he loves it. He loves it. He loves it. The lady that runs it, Miss Kendall, is just a sweetheart, and he, you know, loves the kids that are there, and you know, you pick him up and he's excited. He's got, you know, stories, and it's great. You know, as a parent though, you know, you feel like your job is to provide a safe and, you know, loving childhood for them. I had a tumultuous childhood, and so, you know, I had the goal, of course I'm going to give him what I wanted. Of course, he's going to get everything, and I will do my job. And so there's lots of sleepless nights where you feel like you failed, and that sucks. Which is why you want that, you know, that retribution. You want that accountability. And yeah, I can't even get that. You know, it's very disheartening. Oh,
for sure. I can't imagine what you guys went through. It's just awful.
Yeah. You know, and it's created this, I don't say PTSD, this conditioning now that his, you know, Mom and I, when we do try to talk about, this kind of stuff, and co-parenting is is always challenging. But when you've got something like this kind of behind you, and it's really hard to kind of find what to do next. Do you know what I mean? Especially with school coming up and having to find a school, because
Mm-hmm.
you don't really know what you're terrified of going through something like this again. You're terrified of.
Oh, exactly.
So
it's you're going to look at every situation like school, and if they go to camp. Exactly. Right. I mean, it changes your outlook on everything, like, and it just makes you more aware that this is out there, where some parents we know it's out there, but it's so far removed, and that whole, like, it won't happen to me type situation. But then when it does, it changes your outlook on everything. Every time you want to send your kid off with someone, you're going to second guess, you're going to just be a bit more concerned, or, just wonder a little bit more.
Yeah. And you look at everything as a threat. And so, like, everything feels unsafe going forward. And that's you don't have faith in any of the institutions that are supposed to make you feel safe. And when they come back to you after something like this, and they tell you, they understand why you feel this way, and that, it is what you think it is, there's nothing they can really do about it. It just, that's wild.
Yeah. We thank you so much for coming on and telling your story. We want to make sure as many people hear this as possible to help prevent it from happening again, and make parents more aware to be looking into incidents, and just having parents understand that they've got to be more aware of what's going on.
Yeah. I mean, I want parents to be more aware. I want parents to know about this place, and to do, their due diligence on any place that they do want to bring their kids, and understand that just because, if it starts off and it feels all right, you have to be vigilant, and you have to always understand that, there's risk. And then further, I mean, the most, ambitious and hope is that something changes. I hope that, I still want that vindication that, this place is shut. I still want this place out of business. I want Chisholm
100%
out of a job. I want, these people to have it on their record. They shouldn't be around kids, something, just, something. And then I hope that people see how much of a failure the Alberta government is, and truly understand that the people who are running this province are no better than these crooked organizations.
True that. Yeah.
Yeah. So.
Okay, well, that's it for Day Home Divas this week.
Don't forget to follow us on Instagram at Day Home Divas, on TikTok at dayhome.divas, and join our Facebook group, Day Home Divas.
Hope you join us again next week.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.